show you. Yeah, look at this. 983 millibars. Yeah, that's actually deeper. It is actually officially deeper than our hurricane models predicted. And let's see. Yeah, this is now a 145 mile an hour hurricane. That is what I'm going with pretty much. And I kind of emphasize that this could become a Cat 4 more than likely. And it will show, it now shows that. But before we get back to that and show you all the intensity, major hurricane by tomorrow and major hurricane up until landfall. Right now, based on the NHC, that's not good. And it doesn't matter if this is a Cat 4 or a Cat 3 hurricane. A major hurricane making landfall. I mean, Katrina, I believe, made landfall of a low-end Cat 4 or a high-end Cat 3, something like that. And yet, that thing obliterated a lot of areas. So you have to think population wins over the major hurricane aspect of this. All right, it's kind of like you put a major hurricane and it heads to New York. It doesn't matter. You're impacting over 10 million people. Here, over 5 to 10 million people are in the danger zone of this system. Okay. So now, looking at let me actually go over to the graphics. There we go. So now looking at the key messages for Hurricane Milton, okay, as of 4 p.m., you need to listen in, all right? And please share this stream with your family and friends on social media. I pray for the love of God, please share this, because my duty, my job is to get this out to as many people as we can possible. Because again, 145 is still somewhat generous given our hurricane models that do show a Cat 5 hurricane. Not explicitly shown in my thumbnail because I want to really make sure that if it does become Cat 5, I need to be very sure about that. And then we can up that. Okay. Milton is forecasted to become a major hurricane when it reaches the west coast of the Florida Peninsula midweek. Users are reminded to not focus on the details of the forecast as there remains significant, and I want to really make it clear here, significant uncertainty in the eventual track and intensity of Milton. So both intensity and track are uncertain here, and wiggles to the north and to the south are not out of the question. All right, if you're in the cone or if you're basically in the Big Bend of Florida and southward, you need to be getting prepared for a pretty serious system.
We all have someone from our past we'd like to forget. That's Mark Robinson. Get mad at me if you want.
Win and take the war over intensity. Okay? Intensity is win. All right. Well, what else comes with the major hurricane? Let's see. Storm surge. What else? Coastal, surf. You get lots of high surf. And what else did I miss? Flooding. You get freshwater flooding and a lot of it with this system. So I'm really not focused on how strong this is going to be at landfall. What I'm really focused on how big will the impacts actually be. Because those do kill people. And unfortunately, I think we're up to almost 300 fatalities. Or wait, something like 200 to 300 fatalities with the predecessor of Helene. Wow. I'm just telling you right now that this has the ability of costing many lives. It really is. Okay. So storm surge and hurricane watches will likely be issued tonight or early Monday for Florida. Residents in the Florida Peninsula should follow any advice given by local officials and monitor the updates to the forecast. All right, please, for the love of God, please follow your local officials and local authorities to get the latest updates. If you're told to evacuate, you are to do so. Do not stay behind because, again, if this ends up being a lot stronger at landfall than what the forecast calls for, the impacts are just that much worse. Areas of heavy rainfall will impact portions of Florida through Monday, well ahead of Milton, with heavy rainfall more directly related to Milton expected on Tuesday through Wednesday night. This rainfall will bring the risk of considerable flash urban and aerial flooding, along with the potential for moderate to major river flooding now. That's not good. So we're talking about considerable flash flooding, urban flooding, and major river flooding potentially with this. And of course, the storm surge to combine with overflowing rivers and streams will just make matters a lot worse than what is needed. All right, just really heed my advice, really do. Okay, tropical storm conditions are expected with hurricane conditions possible beginning Monday across portions of the northern Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, where a tropical storm warning and hurricane watch are in effect. Notice where the most important points are in this discussion. They're for Florida first, and then for the Yucatan last. Not that they don't want to give out any points of concern for the Yucatan, but the fact is this is going to be safely, more likely, somewhat safely, not really safely, but you have a hurricane watch issued. But the impacts for Florida will be much more significant than those for the Yucatan, unless this mysteriously heads way to the south and actually makes landfall in the Yucatan. All right. So now the most likely arrival time of tropical storm force winds have not changed a whole lot from yesterday, only to increase the probabilities just a little bit over the Tampa Bay area to now up to 80% chance of tropical storm force winds for that area. There is even a little bit of a red area here over the western or eastern coast of Florida where there is a 70% chance of tropical storm force winds. And you can see here, tropical storm force winds, the most likely arrival time of those here would be Wednesday at 8 in the morning through Wednesday night. All right, tropical storm comes before hurricane force winds. So and just take that into consideration that you do have time to prepare for this. And it looks like by Wednesday late morning, mid-morning, early afternoon, tropical storm force winds do arrive. So now, what about the rainfall impacts here for Florida? As you can see here, there is Tampa Bay has a risk of seeing up to 6 to 8 inches of rainfall. Orlando, 6 to 8 inches. Jacksonville, 4 to 6 inches of rainfall. And then, of course, in isolated areas like St. Pete, as well as Helena, forgot the little county name, whatever it is, over here in the peninsula, could see up to about maybe a foot of rainfall, perhaps, with this, and even a foot of rainfall quite close there for southern Florida. So now looking at the risk for major flooding, Tampa Bay is encircled here with the moderate risk of flooding. Orlando, too, near Jacksonville, under a moderate risk for flooding as well, including for Miami, Florida. So, I mean, Miami may not see hurricane force winds. Pinellas. Okay, I got it. All right, that's what I was thinking, Pinellas. I wanted to just make sure I pronounced it correctly. All right, so Pinellas, something like that, yeah. So Miami, Florida, could see a moderate risk of flooding, and it's not just the tropical storm or hurricane force winds that could see that. The rainfall spreads well away from the system, so we got to keep that in mind. All right, now to the intensity forecast. All right, I want to read this out because this is important. All right, and actually, so I want to read this discussion, all right, and I rarely do that in these videos or in these live streams because it's boring and long, but we really need to really look at this, okay? Milton is rapidly intensifying. Satellite images indicate very deep convection in the eye wall and hints of an eye starting to appear, okay? An eye starting to appear. The last fix from the aircraft showed that the central pressure was down to 985 millibars, about 3 millibars less than 80 minutes prior, and winds supporting 70 knot winds at the surface. Since that time, satellite images continue to show further organization, and the initial wind speed is set to 75 knots in this advisory, which, by the way, the pressure has dropped about 983 millibars, so about a 5 millibar drop in pressure in about an hour's time frame. It's pretty deep. 5 millibars, you don't want to know how deep this could get if it drops at 5 millibars in an hour. Milton is moving just south of due east at about 6 knots. Okay, this upward motion has been more than expected, probably due to a stronger low mid-level frontal low over the northeastern Gulf of Mexico. The frontal future is forecast to weaken while it moves across Florida and gradually lose its influence on Milton. This evolution should allow the hurricane to turn eastward on Monday and then accelerate to the northeast on Tuesday and Wednesday toward the Florida Peninsula ahead of the trough moving offshore of Texas. The NHC forecast is a bit south of the previous one through 48 hours, following the trend of the guidance at that time, and the government of Mexico has issued a hurricane watch for a portion of the northern coast of Yucatan. Later on, the guidance is similar to or slightly north of the last cycle, which we've talked about how it shifted back to the north a little bit and very little changes made to the forecast near Florida. It should be noted that the average NHC track air at day 3 is about 100 miles, and users should not focus. Please do not focus on the exact center and the exact track. Okay, please take that into consideration. Do not focus on the exact track, as this could trend north or south from the exact center, okay? The intensity forecast appears straightforward at first, with rapid intensification while the small hurricane remains within light shear and over very deep warm waters. Intensity guidance is about as bullish as I've seen in this part of the basin. Wow. My gosh, folks. My Jesus Lord Almighty. I don't say that word very often. The NHC intensity guidance is as bullish as I've seen in this part of the basin. As bullish. Seriously, folks, wake up. This is going to be a problem. Intensity guidance is about as bullish as I've seen in this basin. Okay, with almost everything showing a peak intensity of 4 or 5 in the southern Gulf of Mexico in a day or two. The NHC forecast is raised from the previous one and lies near the intensity consensus model and still could be too low. Oh, another big point here. Could be too low. Okay, this is really a wake-up call right here. Could still be too low. Wow, NHC, probably a high-end 155 mile an hour hurricane, maybe a Category 5 hurricane. Maybe that they mentioned it in this discussion. Actually, there is a 25% chance that this does become a Cat 5 hurricane in the Gulf. How about that? That's my bullish forecast on this system. Okay. Later on, vertical wind shear is forecast to markedly increase as Milton approaches Florida, and some weakening is anticipated. However, the regional hurricane models are showing that the system growing even if it weakens, and we are expecting Milton to be a large hurricane at landfall with very dangerous impacts spread out over a big area. There is increasing confidence that a powerful hurricane with life-threatening hazards will be affecting portions of the Florida West Coast around the middle of this week. Residents there should really closely monitor this system and listen to local officials. Please, folks, this is bad. This is bad. And the fact that they use the word Category 4 or 5 in their discussion, yeah, this is the time to not mess around with this system. This is a time to really take this seriously as you could ever imagine. All right. But now, looking at the intensity forecast on this, All right, now this is yesterday's 0Z runs because I'm going to look at the last 4 runs for you all on the intensity guidance here because this is pretty important. This is nothing to mess with. So this was this was last night's intensity forecast. Believe it. Yeah, okay, this is of course the uncertainty here, but watch what I do when I go through the next 4 runs. Okay, this is last night. This is the 060 run. Take note too that we only had one model pointing this at Cat 5 intensity. Now the second model here is getting even closer to Cat 5 intensity, but not there. Okay, this is 060 run. Well, watch this. The 18Z run, a little bit more bullish. Now showing what? 2 models reaching Category 5 intensity. Category 5 intensity, with the majority showing more like a Cat 3 and a Cat 4. But this is when it really, my jaw drops. Literally. Look at the 18Z run. Look at that huge uptrend. All of a sudden, right in here, watch this, how this really just kind of goes up with the latest run. All of the models now, most of them, now calling this to become a Cat 4 hurricane. Okay, and now more concerning, we have 3 models now that bring this to Category 5 intensity. Okay, so now a Cat 4 or even a Cat 5 hurricane, Cat 4 to Cat 5 hurricane, which by the way is not a major hurricane. A Cat 5 is not a major hurricane. It's a super hurricane. It's worse than a major hurricane. Hence its name. It's not official, by the National Hurricane Center. Major is major, but in my books, Cat 3, 4, major, Cat 5, super. Okay, so we could be looking at here at a super hurricane impacting, well, not impacting anyone, thank goodness, but over the middle of the Gulf, on approach to Florida. And again, how quick does the weakening happen is going to be very important. Because if it happens pretty slowly here, if it does kind of like this, well, Florida's in trouble. Florida's in some serious trouble. This could be a high-end Cat 3, maybe a low-end Cat 4 hurricane, potentially. So, but look at this. Going through this again, look at the difference right here. Again, the last 4 models on Milton, and you can see how the intensity really goes up here. It really does. Thank you, John D, for the donation. I do appreciate it very much. I do appreciate the donation. By the way, if you guys do like the live update that I am providing, please subscribe to the YouTube channel because, yeah, I'm going to be going live on this. You bet I will be. We'll do another live discussion tomorrow, of course. I'm probably going to time it more, probably for the morning hours. Might have to do 2 live discussions tomorrow on this. All right. So also another thing to keep in mind before we get to quick questions, I only have about 15 or so minutes to do questions. 3 hurricanes happening at the same time. We got Hurricane Kirk, we got Hurricane Milton, and we have Hurricane Leslie. Yeah, 3 hurricanes with a 4th area to watch still out there in the Atlantic. All right. I mean, seriously, dude. I mean, talk about a busy October. Really starting off pretty busy with 3 hurricanes at the same time. The trio of canes, that is. Okay, so I'm nervous to look at satellite, folks. I know I'm acting a little weird here. I don't even want to see satellite. How does it look, folks? I'm going to get to questions, though. How does it look on satellite? I don't even want to look. I know that's not professional me of doing, but I cannot look at a system. I really can't. David, can you please advise your listeners about D-Land, yes. I will do that. It looks, there are some bursts. Yes, it's now a hurricane, PS. Yeah, so I'm going to now iterate on that. Okay, but I wanted to show this very quickly. Then we'll get to the questions. Yeah, look at the new deep convection. Oh, wow. Yeah, this is looking, look at the, yeah, now this is starting to show signs of banding in the cirrus flow right here. This is looking very organized, actually. In fact, one could even argue this looks almost like a Category 2 hurricane. Literally. And the center is right by this buoy. Now look at that pressure drop, 948 millibars, with winds of almost 80 miles an hour, gusting up to almost 80 on that. So yes, this is really organizing very quickly. All right, let me go to D-Land, Florida, right? If you keep asking. So yeah, let me get to that. So D-Land, Florida, is going to get some pretty big impacts. Definitely tropical storm force winds and some very heavy rainfall. Maybe even some life-threatening flooding. Flooding in that area, just depending on how much rainfall actually occurs over that area. Doesn't look very good for the Daytona Beach, D-Land area, Deltona, Orange City, Lake Helen. Doesn't look good at all for that area. So, again, I'm not going to be able to get to all your guys' questions. I only have like 10 minutes. So, Charlotte County. Again, Charlotte County will be seen. Yeah, Charlotte County is in the concerning stages of a pretty significant event here of tropical storms, even getting maybe, depending on where this actually goes, hurricane force winds at landfall. But yeah, look at all this deep convection here. This is pretty deep. You're very welcome, Joe. But yeah, the system really intensifying. It now looks more, it has a closed eye wall at this point. It really does. The CDO is very uniform, very intense. I mean, we have cloud tops here colder than negative 80 Celsius right now. Thank you, Gen C, for the $5 donation. I do appreciate all the donations, folks. I do appreciate you all tuning in. I know this is a lot earlier, and a lot of you are probably still at work. It just has to be the way it is. But tomorrow, I will be doing a live stream in the morning, probably in the early afternoon, and then do another one after I get home from work. Because, yeah, we are going to have to do at least 2 updates a day. Might even have to fit a third one if necessary. You're very welcome, Divine. Cloud tops are definitely very cold right now, and this is not a good situation. Oh, yeah, look at that deep convection right there. Really intense. You know what? What is the pressure on that? 2948. So 29.48. That's, okay, 998 millibars. So it's not really in that, just below 1,000 millibars. That is pretty high, though. The system is right here, and that's not very far. It's about 43 miles out from the center, perhaps. So it's very compact. That's what it looks like right now. Really compact. And geez, who knows how high the ceiling on this could get. What about Jacksonville, Florida? Well, without showing on the map, because I know where Jacksonville is, Jacksonville, Florida could get quite a bit of rainfall, possibly more than 5 inches of rainfall in that area. With, of course, tropical storm to near hurricane force winds, because it would be a re-emerging over the Atlantic again on the other side of Florida, so you can get some frontal-based hurricane force winds, potentially. Daytona Beach. So Daytona's near Del Rey area. Actually, not very close to Del Rey Beach, sorry. So Daytona Beach, I should already know this. Far eastern Florida, again, strong tropical storm to near hurricane force winds are anticipated with that. Miami, Florida could get tropical storm force winds again, just how close this gets, all right? Definitely getting some impacts, so you could get some water spouts and tornadoes out of this. Actually, a big tornado threat with this could emerge. You're very welcome, Golf Nut. What about Bermuda? Bermuda is not going to get anything right now. That's way too far out. I'm not even focused on Bermuda.